Hello everybody. This is a video lesson about Albert Lea and its surface waters. And I started out the day's lesson asking everybody to see how old this map is. And the answer is old. Down here at the bottom, it shows you 1954. Let me see where it shows you. Right there, 1954. Okay. Most of this video will be, I'll have the camera steady, but every once in a while I'll move the camera around to get you all seasick. Anyway, all right. So this is a special kind of map. It's for map nerds and earth science nerds. It shows you the shape of the land. This isn't a road map. This is not a map you would use for finding an address and delivering a package or something, or a pizza. Okay. This is a map that uses colors that show up well against the white background. Pink is for cities and towns. Red is for major roads and other stuff like that. Black is usually man-made features, and obviously blue is water. But there's more water here than just lakes. If you look carefully, like down here, there's all kinds of wetlands. Think about what it's like down near the Iowa border. All of that blue. They've used a symbol like cattails. That's very, very ducky down there. Very wet. Okay? All right. Now, I gave this class several minutes each hour just to look around on the map and see if they could find where they live. Some people could and some people couldn't. Okay? So, obviously, the town part's here, but things have really, really, really changed since 1954. That was a long time ago. Okay? I was born in 1966. My house here in Albert Lea was built in 1952. It's actually on the map. If you want to see where it is, here's the intersection, what we call Hammer Road and Bridge Avenue. But back in 1954, it was an intersection of two gravel roads. I'll zoom in on it, okay? Individual houses that weren't in the middle of town are actually marked with little black squares. If you count down 5 squares from that intersection, that's my house. Okay? My house, when it was built, was out in the country. Bridge Avenue was a 2-lane gravel road with deep ditches. And this is all cornfield. Okay? Here's the airport, the same airport we have now, but in 1954, it was 2 miles out in the country. This is a mile. This distance right here is a mile. Okay? In 1954, this all made sense. The fairgrounds were on the edge of town. Okay? I was driving in town, let me see, Tuesday night, and a ginormous combine from a show at the fairgrounds was driving back up Bridge Avenue, blocking traffic. And I'm like, what are you doing here? My wife reminded me, oh yeah, they had a show at the fairgrounds. Well, now it's surrounded by houses and it's super busy road. It's like, times have changed a lot, okay? Now, if you look out here at the airport, okay? If you look across the road where this number 33 is, that's where Northbridge Mall is, okay? Where the 33 is, probably about here, that's probably like Qdoba and Jersey Mike's, okay? Now, if you want to see where you're at, here's Hammer School, which your parents would remember, but you don't have a clue what I'm talking about. There was a country school building. It was only torn down a few years ago, right at the corner of Hammer Road and Bridge Avenue. That little symbol right there, it's a square with a flag on it. That was the country school building. If you want to see where the high school is, here it is, where it says SCH for Hammer School, where they ran out of room for the OOL. That green hilltop, that's where the high school was built. They took the trees down, they took the top of the hill off, and our high school, the modern high school, is there. If you're like, well, where's the old high school? Where was it? Right there, okay? That white area, it says high school there. In 1954, Albert Lea High School was downtown. This is like high school and Central Park and all that. The area now is where the ambulance garage is for the hospital. All right, I'm going to back out here. things got a little awkward in the conversations because I told everybody, now we're going to talk about sex. And they're like, what? Yeah. I said, yeah. All of these little black squares were houses that were farmhouses out in the country, and they all had families of kids in them, lots of kids. Back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, we would graduate between 500 and 700 kids a year from Albert Lea High School. Okay? These were farm families, and they all had lots of kids. And when they were little kids, they went to country schools out scattered all over the place. There's one. Okay? There's one. They're all over the place. This is kids walking only a mile or two to a country school. When they're in their upper grades, they'd get rides or bused into town to the high school. Back in the old days, if you asked your grandparents, great-grandparents, they'd tell you that the high school graduations were all done at the fairgrounds because it was the only place big enough for that many people. All right, now, this is really about the water, so now we're going to tell you more about the water. Okay? Albert Lea Lake is a natural lake made by glaciers. We'll talk about that a lot later. Okay? Fountain Lake is a man-made lake. Okay? The area, it was made by water. Okay? What I mean is, sorry, I'm moving my camera a little bit. The people who used to live here before white settlers, Native Americans, they used this area in different parts of the year because of the fantastic numbers of ducks and geese and fish that were in the lakes and the marshes. Okay, the area was, when it was still Minnesota territory, when our country got large amounts of land and drove the Indians away, we didn't know what we even had for land. And when the survey crew came through this whole area, there weren't white people living here. Okay? When they came through to see what it was like, and here comes some sound effects, it was like, whack, 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 whack. They were wading through the marshes and the mud, and they couldn't believe how wet our area was. Okay? And the official declaration was that people would never live here full time because it was just too wet. Our county had over 100 lakes and swamps. Over 100. If you look at it now, you're like, well, I see some, but not 100. Yeah, we got rid of them. Okay? So, now, everybody in class got to see this one Albert Lea area map. I didn't show them the other ones. Okay? So now I'm going to attach the neighbor map because I only have like single copies of these maps. I'll pull back out so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to pause for a second. All right. So if you look out here, I've added the neighboring map to the east. Okay. So let me show you where you're at. Here's Hayward right on the edge of the two maps. Here's Hayward. Okay. I'll scoot the map back together. Okay. Here's Glenville on the Albert Lea map. Here's Gordonsville down here. Austin is way over here on the edge of the neighboring map. Okay, now I'll go to the other side. I'll go west. Okay, so here's Emmons down here. And here's Conger. If you follow this road, there's all the way up to Wells. Okay, here's most of Freeborn Lake. And Freeborn, the town, is just off the edge of the map. Okay. Back on the Albert Lea map, there's Manchester. There's the highway going down to town. Okay. And Clark's Grove, unfortunately, is right off the map, right up here. Okay. So that's some more context so you can see where we're at. All right. Now I'll tell you some more stories about the water. All right. As people heard about this place, the first thing that attracted white people's attention was the numbers of ducks and geese that used Albert Lea Lake. Okay, if you know anything about ducks and geese, they're smart enough to know they can't make it through winter here. So North America's ducks and geese, especially Canada, okay, they migrate south through here, headed to warmer places, and they come back in the spring through here. And Alberley Lake was like their #1 rest area, large body of water, lots of stuff to eat and lots of safety out in the water. And when hunters from the eastern part of the United States heard about the incredible flocks of ducks and geese, some of them started making trips out here. There were no roads, okay? I don't know, that would be a rough trip. But they would come out here for fantastic shooting. And the first, from what I've heard, the first permanent structure built in the area was a hunting shack somewhere around the big island, I think. And if you look here, remember, this is 1954. The state park was just a big island, didn't even include the little island or the mainland. Okay, but when the hunters came through here, the name Camp Moraine refers to hunting camp along here. And if you come out to the state park now, this part is called New York Point because of all the rich New Yorkers who came here for the duck and goose hunting. Okay, all right. Now remember, this is 1954. If you're wondering, where's the interstate bridge? Well, it wasn't here in 1954, but the interstate bridge crosses right here. That's the easiest place they can get across. And that's a long, expensive bridge. It's over a half-mile long. And next time you're on the bridge, notice it's not level. It slopes downhill. Okay? This is the high end and this is the low end. Back to this. Okay. Now, when people decided to settle here, white people decided to live here, Alberley Lake was here. Fountain Lake was just a marsh, which isn't very useful. And somebody decided, I'm going to put this back on the stand. I'll lower the stand. Somebody decided to channel the water that came out of Fountain Lake, and they dug a channel. It's near where our channel is now. The original channel was closer to Herbert's and Gerbert's and Hanson Tire. Okay, for I don't know when, but later on we redug it so the channel is where it is now, where the China restaurant, and you know where the bridge and the dam are. All right, so this was a marsh. They dug it out so it'd be deeper, and you know that we've been dredging Fountain Lake. That's the third time it's been dug out. Okay, because nature keeps bringing in sediment, and we make lots of sediment easy to get to when we farm all this land up here. When the water washes off the land, the dirt washes downstream and fills in the lake. And since we feel like having a lake there instead of a marsh, we have to dig it out every generation or so. Anyway, right, back to this. Now, here comes a gross story. I'm at 13 minutes already. I better pick it up the speed here a little bit. If you notice right here, sewage disposal. This is a disgusting story. Okay. As Alberley grew, the town grew, the sewage treatment plant struggled to keep up with all the stuff that was being washed, brushed, and flushed. Okay. To make it even worse, a major industry right here, this was a kill operation where millions and millions of pigs were brought to town and slaughtered and turned into food for humans. But not everything in a pig can be eaten, even by dogs, okay? So, they'd make the pigs into ham and bacon and pork chops and that kind of yummy stuff. But the stuff that couldn't be turned into fertilizer or dog food, there's some stuff that nothing will eat. Like, this is disgusting. Imagine all the poop inside of the pigs when they were brought here as living animals. And now you got all the contents of their stomachs and their intestines. Like, what are we going to do with that? Well, flush it down the toilet, put it in the sewer system. The sewer system couldn't handle it anymore, and they struggled, and sewage was being treated less and less and less before it was being dumped into Alberley Lake. This is in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and the lake got worse and worse and worse. Other stuff was being dumped in the lake too, and Alberley Lake became an embarrassment. You didn't let anybody know you were from Alberley back then because people had heard about how bad this lake had gotten, because we just couldn't we couldn't treat the water the way it needed to be done. All right. Now, I moved here in 1991, started teaching here in 1991. So, in the 80s, enough money was found by the federal government, the state government, and local governments to replace the sewage treatment plant here that couldn't do its job anymore at all. And we put a new sewage treatment plant down here. I'm going to move the camera, hopefully. Yeah. The new sewage treatment plant's down here. If you've ever been over on the highway or over here, this is called Buck Hill, the area. If you've gone around Auberly Lake, like you're going the back way to Hayward, if you've ever been that way at night, you can see the sewage treatment plant because it glows bright orange. Those are the lights being used, the ultraviolet lights being used to kill the germs in our poop, in our urine that's down here. We pump all of our sewage down along the lake shore, not into the lake, past the lake, and we treat it here. And it's really, really cleaned up, and it's safe. When they discharge the water, it's released in the Shell Rock River, and people catch and eat the fish down here, and it doesn't get them sick, and it doesn't smell, and we haven't ruined Glenville. And this water is headed on down, trying to get to the Gulf of Mexico. All right. I made a big deal. We'll talk about this more later. This says right here, Spillway 1210. Okay, that is where the old dam was, and it tells you that in 1954, the top of Auberly Lake was 1,210 feet above sea level. Okay, that's important later. Okay, if you look here on Fountain Lake, it tells you that the surface of, sorry, my hand's shaking. The surface of Fountain Lake is 1,215 feet above sea level. That makes sense to you if you think about it. The water falls 5 feet basically from Fountain Lake to Auberly Lake, and it travels through town in that channel. All right. Now, the stuff that we wrote down, I have the notes scanned. I'll make sure I've hit all the stuff I needed to hit because we're almost to 17 minutes already, right? So, let me see. So, when the water leaves Auberly Lake, it goes down the Shell Rock River. I'm going to pick up the phone and take you on a little trip here in a minute to a poster in the room. The water goes down the Shell Rock River. It goes southeast. It joins the Cedar River, the river comes out of Austin, okay? And the Cedar River flows down into Iowa and meets the Iowa River, and the Iowa River meets the Mississippi River, and the Mississippi River makes it to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, I'm going to take you over to my wall, and I'll show you that trip. Not very detailed trip, but yeah, I'll show it to you. Here. Okay. Here is, I don't know if the glare is going to lay. Here's Auberly, and the Shell Rock River flows this way and meets the Cedar River, and the Iowa River, and the Mississippi River, and it's got a long trip. Gravity's making it go all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Gravity keeps telling the water, go downhill, go downhill, go downhill. And it does until it reaches the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico. Okay? All right, the last thing I'm going to tell you is, remember, we don't drink any of this water. We drink well water. Tomorrow's lesson is about Auberly's underground water, the water we pump up in our wells, the very, very good water. It's been collected over thousands of years and filtered, and it's quite healthy for us. All right, that's all for now.